One of the most useful things I have encountered when it comes to self development and becoming who we want to be is to track how we have and how we use our agendas. When I say agenda, what I mean is a want that is coming along with something else. It's smuggling something else in there. And I think what it's usually smuggling is tied to fear. I could say something like, "Would you be down to hang out with me this Saturday?" Instead, I might end up saying, like, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend?" And that thing is having an agenda for a softer way to scope out if the person is busy or not, to then have the opportunity to say, "Well, do you want to hang out on this Saturday since it sounds like you might not be doing anything?" But that's an attempt to demonstrate that I could have an agenda to ask you to hang out with me on Saturday. Instead of going straight to that more vulnerable ask, I would instead bring up something else like, "What are you up to this weekend?" So it's not owning the desire that I could have to hang out with you on a particular day, because that could be, again, vulnerable. And I guess from that, the fear would be that I would be rejected or our relationship would be harmed, or you would say no and I'd make that mean something about me or something like that. The best example that I have found for tracking and noticing what is and is not an agenda is through the example of saying I love you to someone when there's a part of the person in saying that that also wants to hear the person say I love you too. So the saying of I love you in the first place is, the way I would put this, unclean, because it's not just being said to transmit an experience and expression of love to someone, but it's coming up in a context of wanting to hear I love you too in response. So it makes something into a context of an agenda. So there's something else that we're bringing into the expression of ourselves that has some ulterior motive. That thing can be big, it could be small, but inherently having that alternative agenda to the things that we are doing or saying is what I'm arguing makes something unclean. In the way of how to use this concept, this technology as a way to better yourself, I would really encourage you to find your agendas wherever you can. Find whatever it is that you are present to that is unclean. So if you're with someone and you're saying something to them and you can catch, oh, dang, I actually am noticing I want them to get something or to do something or to feel a certain way or to behave in some kind of way, and that is making my presence with them unclean. I've caught myself in my own agenda. At that point, the simple recognition that you are unclean, that you have an agenda, is huge. I really want to applaud that and celebrate that, because if you simply track those without doing anything differently, they will change and you will change, because you're getting a view on ways in which you are smuggling stuff into your life in a way that is inherently disempowering to you and to other people, because you're saying to yourself and to others that you can't be direct with them. Not to say be an asshole, but to just be tactful and kind without being nice for the dynamic that you could have with someone. When it comes to agendas and having things be clean or unclean, simply the presence of an agenda doesn't, I don't want to play with binaries. That is, something is unclean or it's clean, because getting to 100% clean, bro, that is hard. And if you think you're already doing that, I would guarantee that that's some shadow stuff going on. And, being 100% clean all the time, very hard. So I want to look at it as a kind of gradation of, we want to seek to be cleaner. We want to seek to drop our agendas more. And also, if we're present to our agendas, to actually voluntarily bring them forward. So in the context where you could be noticing your agendas internally, personally, and then having that change you simply by noticing them. At the next level, move with a container with the people that are safe enough and it's wise enough to be practicing this way. You could actually bring forward, I was noticing that when I was inviting you to hang out with me, that, or when I was actually asking about, hey, what you're doing this weekend, that I actually want to spend time with you if you're open to that. And I'm sorry for being circuitous to get here, but would you be open to spending some time with me this Saturday? So when tracking progress and trying to make this practical for what to do with agendas and being clean, is to seek to be more clean than you presently are. As you begin tracking your own agendas and how clean or not clean you are, it might seem like it's getting worse as you practice it, because you're noticing things that were happening that you didn't really realize were agendas before. So this is a solid case and a good case of things will get worse before they get better. And that's simply because you're noticing how often you are unclean, how often you do have agendas. The more you look for them, the more you will find them. And that's great, because I also think an agenda is a demonstration that there's something that you care about. So you can use the fact that an agenda is present to go, okay, I noticed an agenda. That means that there's something that I care about that's present. What is it that I care about? So it then turns into another form of self reflection and self-knowing for what's important to me. And then because you're now tracking that thing that is important to you from a place that is more transparent to what it is, you are actually more empowered to do something for it in a way that's not just repeating patterns that you've done in the past that are probably training you to have agendas and be unclean because it doesn't seem like it's going to be safe. And you've learned to be unclean because that's how you've learned to attempt to get your needs met. I would challenge you and invite you into a place of running small experiments with people and contexts that are safe enough so that you can go, okay, I found an agenda. I found that I'm unclean. There's something I care about. What would be a way for me to test this assumption that I have found that I need to behave this certain way and see what happens? An example of an experiment could be, like I mentioned earlier, of naming your agenda to someone in real time. A different way to test this kind of assumption could be something like, I have the assumption that I need to speak up in this context because the silence might be interpreted as painful or not caring or by this other person. And I will simply run my experiment of feeling the impulse to speak up, to reassure it, to say something, and I'll notice it and I'm going to count to 10. And then if I make it to 10, I will give myself permission to speak. And that simple experiment can be a thing that can bring a whole bunch of stuff forward, a bunch of feelings, a bunch of thoughts. And you might find that waiting those 10 seconds is no different. The context is the same. It's fine that you waited. You might find that when you waited 10 seconds, something else happened that was actually an important energetic movement in the context of what's happening. So you need to get to a place where you are willing to challenge the patterns that you're finding yourself in that are reinforcing these agendas, that are reinforcing you not being clean, to have something different come up. So here I can own an agenda that I have on the basis of this is a different kind of video format than I've done in the past. Somebody just came up in a client session where we were talking about things with regard to agendas. And I thought, what if I just go and reassociate on this topic? So let me know how this goes. Let me know if you have any questions and if this kind of thinking out loud thing works for you. Thanks for being here.